The sudden, unannounced trip by the CIA director to Caracas signals that Donald Trump is preparing to radically reset Washington's Venezuela policy, shifting from years of confrontation toward a hard-nosed, transactional engagement with the new power brokers in Caracas. This high-wire visit cast Venezuela as the latest test case for a U.S. strategy that quietly prioritizes stability over ideology, using regime change tools not to promote democracy first, but to engineer a controlled transition that protects American interests and calms a volatile region. On January 15, CIA Director John Ratcliff slipped into Caracas for a closed-door meeting with interim Venezuelan President Delcy Rodríguez, sitting down at the presidential palace to probe her plans and gauge whether Washington can do business with her fragile administration. People briefed on the encounter say the meeting reinforced the Trump team's belief that Rodríguez's interim rule, however controversial, has imposed a degree of stability on a fractured state, calming the streets enough for Washington to reconsider its confrontational stance. Ratcliffe thus became the highest-ranking American official to set foot in Venezuela since Nicolás Maduro was captured and removed from power, symbolizing a dramatic thaw after years in which senior U.S. envoys avoided Caracas entirely. His visit followed a direct phone call between Donald Trump and Rodríguez, as well as a separate, high-profile White House meeting with opposition leader María Corina Machado, showing that Trump is hedging his bets by talking both to the new incumbents and to their fiercest critics. But by centering the secret trip on Rodríguez and sidelining opposition figures, the mission effectively snubbed the opposition and its own claimed election winner, Edmundo González, sending a clear signal that Washington is now dealing mainly with whoever actually holds the levers of power. Election experts had long argued that González legitimately won the 2024 vote after Machado was barred from running, yet Maduro managed to cling to office until his downfall, deepening skepticism among democracy activists about any U.S. move that appears to legitimize a post-Maduro caretaker elite. One U.S. official familiar with the mission said Ratcliffe carried a carefully calibrated message from Trump, signaling a readiness to explore better ties with Caracas if the new leadership can deliver concrete steps on security, migration, and economic stabilization. Behind closed doors, the two sides discussed sensitive intelligence sharing arrangements, emergency measures to stabilize Venezuela's shattered economy, and joint efforts to shut down long-standing safe havens for narco-traffickers and armed groups operating from Venezuelan soil. U.S. planners privately feared that if Maduro's regime were rapidly torn down without a clear transition plan, Venezuela's fragile state could collapse, unleashing chaos, factional violence, and a new wave of mass migration across the region. Senior officials repeatedly warned that simply smashing the regime might recreate the post-invasion chaos seen in Iraq, with security forces splintering, institutions disintegrating, and armed groups rushing to fill the vacuum left in Caracas. CIA analysts came to see Delcy Rodríguez as a relatively pragmatic power broker, branding her a hardline insider who nevertheless appeared ready to negotiate and cut deals if it meant preserving order and securing her place in a new balance of power. The U.S. Secretary of State publicly endorsed a democratic transition in Venezuela, yet privately acknowledged that the opposition lacked real presence on the ground and institutional muscle, making any rapid handover of power risky and potentially unmanageable. Within this stability-first framework, U.S. officials predicted that María Corina Machado could compete in future elections once the country was stabilized, while Rodríguez will hold power only in the short term as a transitional caretaker accepted by both Chavistas and Washington. Some senior U.S. officials told the New York Times, "She's a socialist but the most capitalistic one I've seen." The assessment was that Delcy Rodríguez could keep Venezuela from descending into chaos. Removing Maduro was the goal, but we could not afford another Iraq-style collapse. One widely shared report highlighted her wearing a $15,000 designer dress, triggering a wave of mockery that painted her as the face of capitalist socialism, living in luxury while speaking the language of revolution. Rodríguez had previously sat down with U.S. envoy Richard Grenell to explore a possible exit deal for Nicolás Maduro, testing whether carefully managed departure could open space for a new order without plunging Venezuela into chaos. According to official briefings, she consistently tried to find common ground in those talks, signaling flexibility on timelines and guarantees, even though the negotiations ultimately stalled and no formal agreement was reached. Around the same time, Rodríguez announced a new contract authorizing the commercialization of liquefied petroleum gas, presenting it as a cornerstone measure to revive the energy sector and attract badly needed foreign partners. The deal, she claimed, would allow Venezuela to export LPG for the first time in its history, turning a previously underused resource into a fresh stream of revenue that could help stabilize the shattered national economy.
Today, for the first time in our history, a contract for the commercialization of LPG, of gas, has been signed. The first molecule of gas from Venezuela will be exported. We said it, we announced it, that we would export the first molecule of gas, and we are delivering. We are delivering for President Maduro, and we are delivering for our people. A lot of time has already passed, and Venezuela has first been subjected to an unprecedented economic blockade. Well, recently there was an unprecedented military aggression in our history. And Venezuela must move forward, must take steps forward, as I said yesterday, without compromising historical principles or compromising Venezuelan dignity.
The announcement lands just days after Washington unveiled what it calls a new oil agreement with Venezuela, signaling a dramatic shift from years of sanctions and isolation toward a transactional energy partnership built on mutual leverage. Under the terms described by officials, the United States is expected to receive somewhere between 30 and 50 million barrels of Venezuelan crude, giving U.S. refiners access to badly needed heavy oil while offering Caracas a vital economic lifeline. Reports claim that sales of this Venezuelan oil will effectively be channeled through U.S.-approved mechanisms, allowing Washington to monitor volumes, track revenues, and keep tight control over how the agreement is implemented on the ground.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that we will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry guards.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.